Mr. Felipe Grandi, Commissioner General for UNRWA, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you very much.
You're in New York to talk to the international community and to the member states about the UNRWA situation right now. And I want to start with you this interview about the main point you wanted to highlight to the member states.
Yes, as you said, I'm here in New York. In fact, I'm here in New York for a specific purpose, to present the annual report of UNRWA, my organization, the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees, to the Fourth Committee of the General Assembly. And in my statement to the Fourth Committee, I highlighted a few important points. First of all, I said that for the first time in probably decades, UNRWA is working in emergency mode almost everywhere in the region where it operates. This is due, of course, to the emergency in Syria, but I highlighted also the fact that the international community should not forget about the dire conditions of Palestinian refugees and, in fact, of all Palestinians in Gaza, which continues to be affected by the Israeli blockade, a blockade that is now compounded by increasing constraints also on the Egyptian side, and which makes the situation very difficult. Of course, Israel has the main responsibility for the blockade. We continue to ask for the lifting of the blockade. And meanwhile, while the blockade is still there, we ask for relaxation measures to be implemented so that the population is not unnecessarily penalized. But I spoke at length about the situation in Syria. We should not forget that the Syria emergency, it's a very complex, large crisis that has many important components, but it has a Palestinian dimension because in Syria, UNRWA has registered 550,000 Palestinian refugees, which it has dealt with for decades without major problems. But for the past few months, for the past year, I should say, they have been caught in this terrible conflict. And just like other civilians are suffering the consequences of this, and perhaps they are more vulnerable even because we should not forget that although they've been in Syria for a long time, these people are still refugees, and therefore they are more exposed to the hardships of such a terrible conflict. And then, of course, I spoke about our difficult financial situation. UNRWA is an organization funded by voluntary contributions of member states, and we have a shortfall this year of more than $40 million.
And that's been going on for a while now. So how could UNRWA function and give its services to the refugees under this difficult financial situation for the agency?
We've always managed to keep our core services more or less intact. And when I say core services, I mean education. We have 500,000 children in our schools and primary health care, and a number of other important activities. But the pressure is very, very, very big at the moment. And if we don't get this money this year, this $40+ million that we need to complete the year, and in particular, if we don't get additional funds for the next few years, we are in trouble, and we will not be able to sustain the same level of services. And my appeal has been especially to new donors. Traditional donors have been very good, the United States, European states, Japan, Australia, but it is important that other donors step up to the plate, in particular Arab donors. Now, Arab donors are a very important contributor to special projects. They're very generous, but they don't contribute very much to our core work, which is really education and health. And we really would like them to step up to the level of others and to contribute more substantially to these very important activities, which are the essential services for 5 million Palestinian refugees.
Every now and then, Palestinian refugees would protest, would go on demonstrations, maybe in Gaza or elsewhere, protesting what UNRWA had to do of maybe minimizing some of its services or cutting some of its services. What would you like to say to the Palestinian refugee about this?
I would like to say that we fully share their feelings and their frustration. If there is an organization that is close to them, is us, is UNRWA. But we understand why they're upset and why they need us to maintain services. I would like to also tell them that we're really doing our best to convince donors to contribute the funds that are necessary. These are difficult times for raising funds worldwide, especially since 2008 and the economic downturn. It's been very difficult. Governments around the world, donor governments in particular, are cutting their own public services. And we are asking them to fund what, to all intents and purposes, is a public service for a population that has no state, that is in exile. So the appeal is strong, the response is good, but is not enough. We are committed to finding this money, but we ask for understanding and cooperation on the part of everybody, even in the region.
How would you describe the situation in Gaza in terms for the living conditions and also your ability to work under the blockade and the new Egyptian measurements also?
We have a very large operation. About 1/3 of the entire UNRWA operations in the Middle East are in Gaza, because in Gaza, out of 1.6, out 1.7 million people, 2/3 are refugees, so they are entitled to access UNRWA's, to utilize UNRWA's services. We're able to work, but what we are not able to do certain things, which is, for example, in the last month, to import building materials. This has been, during this period, blocked by the Israelis in response to some security issues. What we are telling the Israelis is that we understand that they have security concerns, but the population should not be collectively penalized in response to these concerns. That doesn't solve the problem of security, and it generates frustration and anger in a population that is very large and very near Israel. So I think it's the wrong approach that should not be pursued. On the Egyptian side, this affects in particular people, because that's what Egypt is responsible for, and it has been very irregular given the difficult situation in the Sinai and the political transition in Egypt. But I think that more than UNRWA being unable to do things, it's the hardship on the people that worries us. They are the ones that become more poor, that have less services, whose services decrease in quality because there's no spare parts, there's no fuel, the power plant has been closed for the past week. There's a lot of hardship being piled up on a population that, frankly, has suffered too much in the past decades already.
I think we can move to talk about a brighter side of issues. This year, during the celebration of the solidarity with the Palestinian people, a new star is participating in this, and he has an old relationship with UNRWA, Mohammed Asif. Could you talk to us about his relationship first, and how UNRWA really contributed in having this bright example of a young man?
Mohammed Asif, as you said, is a bright young man who won the Arab Idol singing competition. He won it very successfully, very decisively. And Mohammed Asif is a Palestinian refugee from Gaza, from the Gaza Strip. So we thought that we would offer him the honorary title of Goodwill Ambassador, Regional Youth Ambassador for UNRWA. This is the first time that UNRWA asks anybody to be its Goodwill Ambassador, and I'm so happy that Mohammed accepted that with great enthusiasm and great commitment to help the organization, an organization that has helped him in the past because he was a student in our schools. His mother is a teacher in UNRWA schools, so there is a very strong bond between him and the organization, and he has been fantastic in talking about not only UNRWA but also about the condition of Palestinian refugees and advocating for support wherever he has been. So I'm delighted that he will be able to come to New York and be really an important testimonial, an important witness, a living witness, not only of the suffering of Palestinian refugees, but of their potential. Because this is what UNRWA also does. We don't just bring relief, but through our education, vocational training, primary health care, microfinance and other programs, we offer very important opportunities, especially to young people, pending a political solution to the question of refugees. And Mohammed Asif is a symbol of the success that young refugees can achieve, and also on our side of the contribution that we can give towards that success. I'm very happy that he's coming here.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, it's fine.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr.
Thank
Filipo
you so
Grande.
much.